Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Glory Glory My Night podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is Chris Nugent to review Manchester United's fortuitous win over Wolverhampton Wanderers. I've never been more seething after a victory. It was a woeful display from United. I got very, very lucky in terms of Wolves not putting away their opportunities and obviously VAR decision at the end of the game. Um, Extraordinarily, Wolves actually had 23 shots on goal, which is the most by an opposition team at Old Trafford since 2005, and that was Mourinho's Chelsea at their peak, who had 25 shots on goal. United on that occasion also winning the game 1-0. Would you believe? But put into context, Wolves were favourites of relegation. They changed managers 5 days before the game. They had sold the three best players and signed one player on a free transfer. Mark Doherty returned to the club. So there were absolute no hoopers last night. Yet they were by far the better team, weren't they, Chris?
Maybe that's the approach we should have taken, Kyle. I don't know. They're doing something right over there in Molyneux, it seems. No, it was it was a pretty poor performance, to be honest. It's a smash and grab. I think it's the word, really. I don't know how we managed to get across the line, but I'm glad that we did. You can just hope that that it's a better start than we had last season. You can just hope that when picking up 3 points when we're not playing well is hopefully the sign of good things to come. Maybe when we do play well, we'll win games more comfortably. But yeah, definitely wasn't good. Wasn't easy on the eye, that's for sure.
Okay, before we continue, if everyone could please subscribe to the channel and get your comments in and drop us a wee like on the video. Yeah, so immediately I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and that is the VAR decision not to award Wolves a penalty in
I thought you were
stoppage
going to say
time.
something different there, Kai.
um, so Onana came rushing off his line, which is what we want to see from a goalkeeper. We've been starved of that for a long time, but it was a little bit reckless, and he collided with a Wolves attacker, the substitute who came on. Now, I was trying to think at the time why VAR didn't award a penalty, and I thought that uh, another Wolves attacker had actually won the ball and headed it back across goal, and Onana collided with a completely different player, and the ball was gone. So I thought that's why they haven't given it, because we've seen this before. We've seen it this weekend in the Tottenham Brentford game. A goalkeeper collided with a striker, but the ball was gone, so nothing was given. We've seen even the Wolves goalkeeper last season against Leeds, Jose Sa, clattering into a Leeds player and nothing. There was no big deal made out of it anyway. You know, on Talksport, they had a 3 hour debrief on this decision that was given Manchester United's way, as they quite often do. I just feel that there's so much attention on it because it's Man United, and quite we see these incidents in almost every week, yet they're not talked about in the same way unless it's United. But the more I watched it, the more I thought, yeah, it's a penalty. Not even the most diehard United fan could argue against that. And even the majority of United fans last night were saying so. I was just trying to see it from the referee's point of view, thinking that the ball was gone, and maybe that's why he got away with it. But it still has to be a penalty in my view. And since last night, the PGMOL have apologised to the Wolves manager, admitted the mistake, and the officials involved last night are all suspended for the upcoming weekend's games. So, what did you make of it then, Chris?
Yeah, I thought it was a Stonewall penalty, to be honest, Kyle. Stonewall penalty. I couldn't, I mean, I don't know sometimes the intricacies of the rules of modern football and all the tiny things about in this scenario, and if the intent was there. And, we hear these sort of things where the ball wasn't played intently by, you hear all these minutiae that sometimes I find quite hard to understand, to be totally honest. But to me, that just looked like a Stonewall penalty. I mean, he took the guy out. He looked like he was going for the ball, in the sense if the ball was in the vicinity, heading in the general direction. He went up, but he was absolutely nowhere near the ball. And he just completely got the man. So I mean, if it was against us, put it, you look at it. If it was against you, you'd have been crying from the rooftop, saying that's an absolute 100% penalty. I can't believe we didn't get that. We've been done out. So I mean, I can understand if Wolves fans are pretty raging about it, and I think rightly so. But that said, I have to say, Kyle, the Man United thing is definitely a thing. it's always a big deal when it's Man United, and people have no sympathy and this, that, and the other, and Man United are the worst in the world, and they're paying off referees, or I'm not saying people say that, but there's always Man United getting away with it again. But you see it all the time with other clubs. One thing I will say, in fairness to you and I and other United fans, at least we have the decency to admit when we've got a stroke of luck that we probably shouldn't have got. Other clubs, fans, not to tar them all with the same brush, sometimes will try and defend and say, oh, this, that, and the other. And look, at the end of the day, it was a penalty. We got away with one. Referee made a bad decision. VAR, how the heck they didn't overturn it is beyond me. And as we always say, people say, oh, when it goes your way, you're happy. When it doesn't. But actually, I just want the rules to be applied well, and be applied consistently. And again, last night, another poor decision by the ref and poor decision by VAR. So yeah, I'm happy we got lucky, but at the same time, I just want I'd rather see the refereeing being a bit stronger. So yeah, penalty for me.
Yeah, game week 1 already. There's been several mistakes across the board, and inconsistency already. Now, Hard Web has brought in new laws. For example, anyone time wasting is booked immediately, and I agree with that. But still, VAR decisions they're getting them wrong because it's the same people in there who are just completely incompetent, who are watching 17 screens and not able to come up with the right decision. It's just baffling, really.
Maybe that's what
Um,
it is. Maybe it's information overload. Overthinking it. Too many angles, too many views, and but the one view you get, that's a penalty all day. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's no way we can possibly argue that that wasn't a penalty. Um, Wolves are for right to feel aggrieved. I mean, the Wolves manager said, I felt as if we deserved at least a point. To be honest, they probably deserved to win the game on the balance of play. But they were toothless in terms of their finishing as well. They had so many of those 23 shots were off target. Um, Other efforts were straight at Onana. He only had to make 2 or 3 saves really. So they had their own finishing to blame really as well. But we're going to focus on United now. And many concerns from last night. The midfield area is what stood out to me the most. If you look at even the positional map for one of Wolves' counterattacks, now Casemiro he's just left exposed by himself because Bruno Mount is near the edge of Wolves' penalty area, and Bruno is slightly further back. Whereas five Wolves players have converged in the middle of the pitch. So almost a 5-on-1 situation against Casemiro. Now, I know what, and I even remember a counter attack where Casemiro was obstructed by a Wolves player, and then other Wolves runners were just allowed to burst through the middle, and all of a sudden there was like a 5-on-4 situation against United's back four, and this was happening again and again. Um, so Ten Hag's seriously going to have to rethink this midfield three because it's not working. Looking at how often this happened, I'm getting the impression that Guy O'Neill had been studying United carefully in pre-season, looking at this brand new midfield three and thinking that if I pack the middle area, get runners running down the middle, United are going to be exposed, and that's exactly what happened. So it's very very smart management if that's exactly what he was intending on. But going forward for us, there's no way we can persist with that midfield. The two Roman eights and the number 6, because Casemiro just been left exposed. He was having to dive in so often. And making he was looked a wee bit off the pace as well, if I'm being honest. But certainly he was on his own in there, wasn't
He definitely, yeah, you're right. But he did look off the pace. I think there was one attack I remember distinctly watching. I think it might have been the attack after Martinez had been not that long, a few minutes before, booked. And the guy ran, it might have been Lamina, took the ball straight through the middle and maybe played a 1-2, got it back, can't remember. And had a good shot on goal where basically he kind of slightly outmuscled, I think it was Casemiro. And then the ball was kind of 50-50. And I was looking at it thinking, Casemiro could probably dive in here and probably get the ball and just nip it away. And he didn't. And he looked a bit leggy or something. So, yeah, he looked off the pace. But you're right, Kyle. I think generally it does seem like the Wolves manager, had a look at what United were kind of lining up in pre-season and knew how to kind of take us apart. Yeah, they burst through the middle so many times, and looked like there was nobody was going to stop them, and they did it so easily. And like I say, Casemiro looked a bit off it. In that one particular move, I think the attacker, I think it was Lamina, burst past Martinez. Now Martinez has been booked, and that you could tell wasn't able to put a tackle in on him, which probably didn't help matters. Hence why Ten Hag took him off at half time, because he knew that was going to be an issue. But still, yeah, there was a few times when it just looked like they kind of had our number. It was concerning for sure. But yeah, I mean, good management by O'Neill. But yeah, Ten Hag's going to have to think about it. I mean, unfortunately, yeah, first game of the season, but Casemiro for me was one of our strongest performers last year. You thought he was Mr. Reliable, and if that's a sign of things to come, then it's going to be difficult. So yeah, I just hope it improves.
Yes, 100%. Um, yeah, Martinez was hooked at half time because of that silly challenge that he made in the first half. He had no need to dive in there. So he was risking getting sent off. And like you alluded to, there was a counter attack where Casemiro, I think, dived in, didn't make contact with the ball man, and then Martinez was easily beaten. And then all of a sudden, we were in big trouble. Um, but I don't think Martinez was very happy about being subbed, looking at his face as you would expect. But it was quick
It
decision
was,
by Ten Hag. The problem,
yeah, it was the right decision.
the problem that I had was that he took it clearly like the first 15 minutes of the second half were not an improvement on the first half. Yet he didn't make any attacking subs to well into it must have been 25 minutes into the second half. To me, it needed to be done quicker. I thought Sancho was pretty decent when he came on. I wouldn't go as there was someone else saying that he completely changed the game. I'm not sure it would go that far, but certainly he was positive, more positive. The attacking players were a shambles, and when Bruno, Mount, Rashford, Garnacho, and Anthony, I think he was okay in the first half, but the other five I mentioned there were atrocious. And Casemiro's exposed. Probably our best player on the night was probably Wan-Bissaka, both from a defensive and an attacking point of view, getting the assist for the goal. Bruno did play a nice ball into Wan-Bissaka. He followed it across, and Varane put it away. And boy, did he celebrate that goal! I think he might have enjoyed that one.
Looks
He
like
doesn't
it.
score. I don't think he doesn't score that often, so you can't blame him. And it was an important goal, as it proved to be. Um, but United were a shambles last night, and I think that not only is Ten Hag going to have to rethink his midfield or at least his formation, he's going to have to. I think now, not like we've been talking all summer about Amrabat being someone who supplements the squad, and I think he's an absolute necessity. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he could be. I wouldn't. I would. I mean, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have said it before the season started, before this game. So, and I guess it is only one game. It's early days, but yeah, it's looking like we're still a bit weak there. I mean, it's interesting. We got rid of Fred, or yeah, Fred's not there, and I think that's probably a good thing. But then he does have certain strengths. Like I say, Casemiro's been Mr. Reliable, so I can understand why you think, oh, he's going to have a good season. But last night he was kind of missing, and I think that made a big dent for us in terms of going forward. Yeah, I was hoping for a wee bit more from Mount. Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch Mount week in week out really before he signed for United. I'll be honest, but there has been times I've seen him maybe for England play. I think out wide. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle. And I always thought he looked really bright out there. So I know he's probably a central midfielder generally, but yeah, I think sometimes he can be maybe more effective out wide. In terms of the other players, Fernandez, yeah, was just average. Didn't really see a lot of him. Good ball for Wan-Bissaka. I personally was very disappointed with Garnacho, I have to say. I think Wolves are quite a big team. Actually, they're quite physical, and I think I felt at times like Garnacho was bullied off the ball a wee bit. They read him quite quickly. He was holding on to the ball too long. He wasn't decisive. It just looked like the typical performance of somebody who's young and got a lot of ability, but not quite streetwise in some ways. That's how it felt to me, which is not what I ever would have saw in Garnacho before. But last night he looked a bit like that. He ran out of ideas a wee bit. Every time they read him, he lost the ball. So I think a really disappointing night for him, to be honest. He was probably the one that disappointed me the most in some ways because of that. Yeah, I thought Anthony was pretty good. First half he was bright. I've said this on the podcast before, Kyle. I know Anthony gets lost. Like, I do like him because he does what he did last night. He works his socks off in every scenario. He's tough. He works hard. Nothing phases him, and he will always keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I do think he'll be a good player for us. I really do. And I think last night he showed that. But yeah, unfortunately, wasn't getting a lot of joy in terms of product. And that's where he needs to improve. But yeah, I thought he put in a shift at least.
I think another very concerning aspect of last night was Marcus Rashford playing in the number 9 position, and he looked from minute one as if he didn't want to play that position. Like when there was high balls coming in, he wasn't even challenging. He was hoping that the defender would miss the header, and then he'd be able to run in behind. But not once did he try and compete for a header, and the ball's just coming straight back then. Um, and he wasn't really like we seen Lex and Mason Mount, even though he didn't play well. He was still chasing down the goalkeeper, chasing down defenders, working hard. Um, we've seen Anthony obviously do that, like you alluded to. Garnacho was working hard, but Rashford was just strolling around, and it was starting to get on my nerves. It was almost like some people suggested that it was a protest that he wasn't playing in his favourite position. Um, and I do think of the obvious change that the manager is going to make now for the Spurs game is he's going to take Garnacho out of the team. And, at least half the fan base say that Garnacho is better coming off the bench. And on last night's evidence, they're probably right. So what we probably see against Spurs, I think, is Rashford will be reinstated to his favourite position on the left, and Sancho will then operate as a false 9. Is that how you see it then, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's a fairly good kind of idea, Kyle. Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I think Garnacho last night showed his age in some ways, or showed lack of experience, not age, should I say? If you're good enough, you're old enough. But I think he maybe has more impact for now coming off the bench. I'm sure he likes starting. He seems like the kind of guy who wants to start. But I think he was just exposed to a bit last night. Yeah, Rashford just to be honest, Rashford reminds me of a winger. I mean, he just everything about him to me cries winger. Loves the ball at his feet, relies on his pace. Doesn't want to stand up and win the ball in difficult situations. Wants it in over the top. Wants to run onto it. That's to me just feels like a kind of a winger, really. So yeah, you're right. I don't think he loves playing centre forward, and I can see why it doesn't really suit him. He likes the ball. And often when you're a number 9, you're running in the channels, you're chasing sometimes nothing, hoping for things, and then you're just waiting for that one chance you get, and you're happy if you get that, you put it away, and you don't care what else you do. But that's not Rashford. So yeah, I think that makes sense. To have Rashford out on the wing and have Sancho in the middle. I think Sancho can show times where he's quite cool in the box as well, which I think goes in his favor. So yeah, I think that seems like a fairly reasonable kind of approach.
Yeah, because we also have to keep in mind that Rasmus Højlund is not available yet due to a back injury that he has, which apparently affects a number of young players. So he's going to need a period of rehabilitation before he can play. Looking at the moment that he's not going to play until September. Um, the target is for him to make his debut against Arsenal, but an away game against Arsenal is quite a baptism of fire.
He'll be fine. It's only Arsenal, Kyle.
This current Arsenal are not the Arsenal that we're accustomed to seeing in the last 20 years. They're a wee bit better than that.
Unfortunately.
Um, um, yeah, so I think I definitely expect to see that at least that one tweak. Although beyond the Spurs fixture, I do think he needs to consider changing the midfield three. I do think we need to sign not only a backup to Casemiro, but someone who can play alongside him as well. Like while things weren't going well last night, if he had Amrabat on the bench, he could have taken Mount off at half time or after 60 minutes and brought him on to play alongside Casemiro. Would have been a completely different game, in my opinion. We've been more solid in the middle. It would have been more difficult for Wolves to break down the middle, and would have had more control of the game, and possibly would have scored more goals and won the game more comfortably. So that's the difference, having that kind of option on the bench. Like you say, Fred is gone now, and McTominay didn't use him to very late on, but Amrabat would be a massive upgrade on McFred, and he's sitting there waiting on United to get the deal done. I think the problem is United want to shift a few players before they make that move. But we'll get onto that in a second. That's something that's really bothering me as well.
Any particular
Um,
names in your mind you're thinking of, Kyle, or just general?
the former captain, do you know that guy? That's the one I'm thinking of.
Can't remember his name anymore. Can't remember his name.
Before we talk about that, I want to get on to a couple of things from last night. Luke Shaw, deeply worrying. He was being very narrow again with those Wolves attacks. He was being drawn into the middle, and all of a sudden, the Wolves attacker on the right was just having a free shot on goal. Um, Something that I don't think he's going to improve on at 28 years old. It's just something they're going to have to live with when it comes to Luke Shaw. I don't think he was very good from an attacking point of view last night either. Well, then nobody really was, apart from um, the goalkeeper, the right back, and obviously Varane for scoring the goal. But apart from that, you couldn't really compliment anyone. I mean, the front six were all an absolute disaster. Um, but Onana, I thought, had a solid debut. It might have been saying something different had he given the penalty away. Um, Assuming that he wouldn't have saved the penalty, he may have even saved it had it been given. Because they don't really have an obvious penalty taker there anymore, Wolves, because so like Ruben Neves and Jimenez is gone, and Adama Traore and so on. So I don't know who even would have taken it. So maybe Onana would have saved it. So yeah, because sometimes in these debates they get on as if the penalty means goal. It doesn't. It could have been missed.
No,
Um,
very fair point. Very fair point.
yeah, so he was good when called upon, and his distribution was very good. He was playing some lovely balls out to Garnacho, but unfortunately Garnacho was not making the most of it. I think we like we've talked about. But yeah, it looks promising, but at times he is going to be reckless, and we're just going to have to take the rough with the smooth.
I think we know. Yeah, I think we know what we're going. I think we knew what we were getting. I don't think anybody's been under any illusions. Yeah, I mean, we talked. We talked about it at the end of last season, and I said it, and I stick by it. We're never going to be able to replace the shot stopping ability of De Gea. It just ain't going to happen. There was even, and I'm not trying to be a banana, really not at all. There was a scenario actually where Wolves nearly scored and probably should have scored, where the man hit the post at the back post, and Onana didn't. I don't think he even had it covered. And I actually thought that De Gea probably would have. De Gea arguably would have pulled that off the line. If that had been on target, it was a goal. But you know what you're getting with Onana? He's brilliant with his feet. He's massively entertaining. He's a huge personality. When he came out, I think it was Gary Neville kind of half praised him for the penalty, even though he admitted it was probably a penalty, where he said, you just want your goalkeeper as a defender to come out and take everything, take the man, take the ball, take the whole lot. And that's what Onana was kind of trying to do. So, yeah, I love him. Like, I think he's great. But, yeah, he's never going to be as steady as De Gea. But what you're getting in return is somebody who's much better in their distribution, much better with the ball at their feet, and a stronger personality there, who's going to, as we've seen, Maguire's going to call out defenders and going to command the back line. So I think, it's a slight trade-off. But I think all in all, he's going to be brilliant. I like him. I think he's going to be good.
Well, it's a trade-off from the prime De Gea. That's not what we were getting in the last year or two. He was making a lot of mistakes with shots.
True, true, true.
You only have to look at like the West Ham game and Sevilla. He's making very basic errors. De Gea. There's other games as well that I can't think of the top of my head, but there was at least 5 games last season where De Gea cost us points by making silly errors. So yeah, Onana's not going to be. Nobody's going to be the shot stopper that Prime De Gea is. But that's not the De Gea that left the club. So Onana's a massive upgrade from David, because like all the other attributes that you want from a modern goalkeeper, he has them in abundance. And you know, in terms of the 32-year-old De Gea that left the club, Onana's probably not that much of a downgrade in terms of the shot stopping. I also loved the incident where he came out to win the ball, and he did on that occasion, and he clattered into Luke Shaw and the attacker at the same time.
I
That was
saw that. I
always
saw that. I don't think Luke Shaw knew what hit him there. Actually, I think he thought somebody else would come on and give him a kick. Yeah, I loved it. No, you're right. No, he is brilliant. I mean, I have to say, in De Gea's defence, I still think that the De Gea that left the club is a better shot stopper than Onana. I still think that yeah, he was a few games where he cost us, but I think that if Onana gives away penalties, he's going to cost us too. But the point is, like you say, Kylie, it's not really about that. And it's about Ten Hag as well, as much as anything. You know, Ten Hag has a big philosophy and the goalkeeper starts attacks. And De Gea just wasn't capable of doing that. And Onana looks like he will be. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's not even about better or worse, it's about a better fit. And I think that Onana is definitely a better fit for the way Ten Hag wants to play. And that's arguably the more important than anything else. So no, I definitely think he's the right man at the right time. But yeah, but yeah, no, you can't not love him coming out and cleaning everybody out. That's just entertaining, isn't it?
yeah, it's Schmeichel-esque.
Exactly.
Yeah, even when we were passing it around the back, between the back four and the goalkeeper, when even when he's in possession and is at the edge of a 6 yard area, I was very very relaxed. See, De Gea was in possession in the edge of 6 yard area. I was having kittens. I was thinking,
You're starting to freak out. I know. No,
yeah,
he looks so good. Not only that, he looks so great with both feet. You know, you can tell he's comfortable pinging it with his left, pinging it with his right. He looks incredible on the ball. My only small criticism was not of him, was the times he was so comfortable with the ball, the defenders kept giving it to him, and I was going, get the ball forward. You know what I mean? Stop playing it back.
yeah.
You know, I know almost too good and too. You know, he's just another defender. We'll play it back. Then I was going, forget about that. Move it on. Move it on. But no, you can't argue at all. His ball playing skills are sublime. Yeah, they're just brilliant.
There was also a massive issue where there was a lot of times where he was in possession, he was looking up for someone to pick out, and there was nobody to pick out, so he had to just play the short ball to Martinez.
Agree, totally agree. Yeah. I have to say, you know, last night was the first for a wee while that that we looked again toothless, for want of a better word, going forward. Not even toothless. It was the same thing that I criticised us for before Ten Hag came in, and sort of the end of the Ranić reign and stuff, where you know, and probably at the end of Solskjaer, complaining about us, you know, sloppy going forward, you know, playing balls behind the man you're trying to play to, picking the wrong ball at the wrong time, you know, not being efficient and kind of slick enough. And I saw that again last night, which is really hard to watch. You know, tax breaking down, like you say, Onana sometimes playing good balls, or players playing good balls into somebody, and then they make a wrong decision, or they miscontrol it, or you know, they play it back, or you know, when they should play it forward. And yeah, it was just again just very disjointed looking going forward last night, which was hard to watch at times.
Yeah, it was extremely disjointed, and yeah, it's very disappointing. There's a lot to work on. Now we do notoriously start seasons very slow, and I suppose we've got to take the positive in the fact that we won last night, whereas last season we lost our first two games and then miraculously beat Liverpool at home after losing 4-0 to Brentford. But we've actually got 3 points from the first game, so we've got to look at it. You know, we're sitting there in the top four of the Premier League, so with only one game played, so there's no there's no point in beating ourselves up about it. But there is a lot of work to do in the next 5 days for the manager, and he's going to have to make changes. Either he's going to have to, number one, he's going to have to make the midfield more solid by maybe making a personnel change or a formational change, and he's going to have to probably bring in Sancho for Garnacho while Rasmus is unavailable. Certainly don't want him bringing in Anthony Martial, that's for sure. I don't. He's never the answer. If he's the answer, what is the question?
I like that one. Yeah. Who is which Man United player is likely to put the least effort in? I think that might be the question, Kyle. If the answer is Anthony Martial.
Well, I tell you what, Rashford was running them close last night for the lack of
No,
effort.
he definitely was.
Um,
Definitely was.
so I'll just do some player ratings now. First of the season. So Onana we get a 7 from me. Wan-Bissaka 7.5. Varane 7 for the goal. Martinez probably a 4, taking out half time. Luke Shaw a 3 probably. Anthony a 6. Bruno a 3. No, I'll say 4 because he got a pre-assist for the goal. Probably the only decent thing he done the whole game. So 4, I'll say. Casemiro probably a 3. Um, Mason Mount a 3. Garnacho a 3, and Rashford a 3. Yeah, and the manager obviously made some subs to try and change the game. And I would probably give Sancho a 6 for his impact. Um, Palestri probably a 6 as well. Ericsson a 5, I'd probably say, to be honest with you. He was getting bullied a lot off the ball as well. He was like
Yeah,
Garnacho, wasn't he?
yeah, you know what? Like I say, Kyle, when you looked at it, Wolves are a big team and they are a physical team. With to give any defense to United, they are a big team, so you are expecting them. And when you look at the players that got kind of bullied off the ball, so to speak, they're not the most physical players. Garnacho was just looked a wee bit young, and Ericsson we know is not that type of player. He's not a massively physical player, and they probably maybe they kind of use that against him. So yeah, it's one of those games where you can half expect things like that to happen. You don't normally see it with Ericsson, but in a game like that, it's probably when it was going to happen in a sense.
Yeah, and McTominay was only on for a couple of minutes, and Ten Hag could probably get a 4 as well. So it was very, very disappointing. And from a tactical point of view, and the team just seemed very unprepared, and it was almost as if they were still in pre-season. That's the way they played. They didn't look fit, to be honest, which is baffling. It's they were working toward this game for 5 weeks, and you wouldn't know it. Wolves were basically working towards this game for 5 days, and you wouldn't have known it by watching it, would you?
I know it is strange. Like you do wonder. I mean, I always think about a new manager bounce, but you think with the people that they had, they were just lucky to have a manager. You wouldn't expect that new manager bounce, but maybe that's what it was. But certainly yeah, they looked pretty good. There was a couple of players in the team you would look and go, if I play like that every week against every team in the league, flip me, you'd snap him up. He's good. If only one of them could finish, you go flip me. He's great. So yeah, I think some of them played out of their skins. They really did.
Well, you know what it is. They won't play like that every week because they raised their game because they're playing at Old Trafford and it was the manager's first game. So, but you can bet your bottom dollar they will not play like that every week.
I know. And the lack of goals is a big problem for them, as it was, I think, last season, and it will continue to be. And you're right, Kyle. And if they don't put chances away, possession really means nothing. You know what I mean? If they can't put them chances away, they're going to keep losing games. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, but no. Some of the guys, good performances, but yeah, I would say if they can't finish, they're going to struggle again this year.
Yeah, just like us, they need a striker. So let's move on to the latest transfer activity or lack of. Now it was always looking pretty positive in terms of departures. We've sold so many players already, and it looked as if Maguire was going to follow for 30 million,
I
which is
just
a
love the way you talk about transfers, Kyle, and lack of transfers. And I thought you were going to talk about players we're not getting in, but you're actually talking about players we're not able to get rid of.
yeah, it was all going so well, all going so swimmingly in terms of departures. The best window in terms of departures probably since Van Hal's first window. I think it's been a long, long time. Normally we make a couple of token sales in the last day of the window, the last week of the window, for very, very minimal fees. But we've been doing well. We're doing well to get rid of Deadwood in this window, but stalled slightly because Harry Maguire, even though there was a 30 million fee agreed with West Ham have now pulled out of it because they're so fed up with Maguire trying to agree a severance package with Manchester United. Now, according to Jacob Steinberg, I think who works for the Guardian, he said it was 7 million that Maguire's demanding from United. Now, Neil Custis of the Sun, who we know from the Sunday Supplement, has went even further and said that Harry Maguire is demanding £15 million from United to leave the club, which is staggering, really. And it smacks of he's mostly motivated by money, because his England place is surely at stake here. Surely he'd want to play regular football at 30 years old, not rot on United's bench for 2 years, like or become the new Phil Jones at United. It could be even worse than that. Um, and he will not budge until he's given a fairly significant payoff by United, who obviously don't want to pay him that kind of money. I mean, it's totally unprecedented. The only way you get a payoff normally is if, say, you've got 1 year left on your deal and the club are just going to cancel your contract to allow you to be a free agent. That's not this type of scenario. A club are buying him for 30 million, who are offering him 100 grand a week, and yet he still wants a payoff. Now, he's already extremely unpopular with the Manchester United fan base around the world, as everyone has noticed with the boos in America, Australia, Ireland. Um, he's just making it worse for himself. I don't see how staying would be an option for him because he's not going to play. Look at even last night. Who came on when Martinez was taken off? It wasn't Harry Maguire. Um, he didn't come on at all. He didn't. And five subs were made. So, 16 players took to the field last night, and Harry Maguire wasn't one of them. He was stripped of the captaincy. If he's not a regular starter for this season, is he going to play at the Euros next summer with Levi Colwill breaking through at Chelsea? I don't think so. So, what possible benefit is there to him to sit on United's bench or sit in the stands for a year? So clearly, if he's willing to do that, then money is obviously more important to him.
It's a very strange one. I think money must be important to him, but I just always get the sense from him that he constantly feels disrespected. That he feels that, why do United fans not appreciate me? Why does Man United not appreciate me? Why does Eric Ten Hag not appreciate me? I look how great I am when I play for England. I've nothing to prove, as he said himself. I've done it all. I've nothing to prove. They should respect me for what I've already achieved. And you know, it's almost like he's digging the heels in and saying, well, if you're going to disrespect me by, I know, hear me out, exactly, my reaction, exactly. Then I'm going to make you pay for the privilege if you think that. And that attitude absolutely baffles me. I saw that Ten Hag said something the other day, and I love Ten Hag and the way he publicly plays these things. He's such a cool customer. What he basically said, if reading between the lines, is I think Harry Maguire can be a decent footballer because I've seen him play well for England, and I'm happy to give him the chance to prove that to me. But so far, I haven't seen it, and he's not proving it. And until he does, he's not playing. And if he wants to stay and prove it, happy to stand here and watch, and I'll give him a chance if he proves it. But if he's not going to it, then he's surplus to requirements. And rather than Maguire taking that challenge up and saying, "Okay, bring it on," I'm going to prove myself and we're going to win things. He just kind of seems to throw the head up and say, "I've nothing to prove to you. I don't need to prove myself. I already proved myself. You just don't believe in me. That's your problem." And that in a way seems, as far as I can see, just sums up Harry Maguire's attitude. And that's the reason why he has to go. And if he doesn't go, then I can just see a season of him sitting on the bench. Kyle, and like you said, how's that going to help his England chances? He's gonna cut off his nose to spite his own face. He's just going to end up sitting there. He's going to get he's going to lose match fitness, unless the England manager is very forgiving, as he was towards the end of last season when Maguire wasn't playing, and says, despite not playing for your club, I'm going to let you play for England. That'll only last so long, and eventually he'll just not get picked for England at all. So he's cutting off his nose to spite his own face. He'd better just go into West Ham, working his socks off, playing well, trying to regain his form, regain his fitness, and put his whole Man United experience behind him. But it's almost like his ego has been so badly offended that he's digging his heels in. But he's just making life hard for himself.
Yeah, according to reports, he's very unhappy with the manager as well. Um, so he's digging his heels in basically.
Yeah, it's
Um,
exactly what he's doing. It's just a statement. If I'm not happy with how you treated me, I'm digging my heels in. But yeah.
but I had to laugh there when you said, "All you referring to Maguire saying all I've achieved in the game. Achieved what?"
Well, when a man says he's nothing to prove, it must be what he
Uh,
means. Look at what I've achieved. And yeah, well, I'm looking. What have you achieved?
yeah. He said he had nothing to prove. Um, he boasted about winning 10 games in a row at United in the League Cup and Europa League games. He was talking about. Um, he was at a match against Burnley. Also stood out for me where not only was he at fault for the Burnley goal in the one each draw, a Varane goal was disallowed because Maguire was fouling a Burnley player from an offside position. So he was at fault for us getting a goal chalked off, and at fault for the goal we conceded. And then in the post-match interview, he did not take any responsibility. He said the responsibility was collective. Yet he was the captain. He was responsible for us dropping points, and yet he, like, if it had been Roy Keane who did that, he would have said it's my fault that we didn't take the points home. I just can't stand the arrogance of the man, and it comes across in interviews, his behaviour, the way his PR team do constant briefings to protect his reputation, and they've been doing it all summer as well. It just really gets on my nerves, and I think it's time for him to move on. And just when we thought, this time last week, we thought he was moving on, and I said quite graciously on social media, I didn't want to, stick the knife in anymore. I was like, listen, this is a great move for all parties, including Harry himself. And here he is, refusing to budge and won't move because he wants United to write him an obscene check, which is just completely unreasonable, really. And I'm not surprised the club are not going to write that check to him.
Yeah, I mean,
Um, yeah.
there are times when maybe he's been treated harshly. Perhaps so. Man United fans, we're all guilty of it. We can be fickle. We've been spoiled in some ways by the best at times, and I understand that. Maybe he feels some ways aggrieved, or he feels that we're not giving him the respect, of the at least the effort that he's put in, or at least in his eyes. But the fact is, the Roy Keane was a really good analogy, Kyle. Is and that there, kind of to me sums Harry Maguire is kind of the problems up in a sense. It's not even his performances; it is his attitude. You used to hear United talk all the time about players like David Beckham, who was, at the peak of his powers, and he still trained more than anybody else. Turned up earlier, stay behind the. It was never enough. Enough was never enough. And that was United in that period. That was what people always said. Hunger was off the scale. The one league, they won a Champions League, and then it was back in the drawing board next season. Forget about you won nothing, back to square one. You know, Even what you have achieved means nothing. It's a new season, and that's why we were so good and during that period. And Roy Keane epitomised that as well, and that's the problem that I see. Maguire doesn't seem to have that, and Ten Hag will see that too. And I think Ten Hag, in my opinion, that piece, that statement that he made, felt like that's what he was saying was, I'm putting the challenge out to you. It's up to you to take that on. And if your mentality allows you, I'll give you the chance. And it just doesn't seem like Maguire wants to do that. And I think that in itself is just showing more reasons why he needs to move on, because he's not a player that has the mentality to win at the absolute elite level of football. And that's the kind of player we want at Man United and we've had in the past. So, yeah, I think it sums it up, really.
Yeah, I think he's a player that should never have been signed in the first place and was never worth £85 million either. Um, that was a mistake made by you got to say jointly between Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And for the Woodward era is still stinking out the place. We're still struggling to get people off the books. I mean, fair play to Fred. He went to Fenerbahce without any fuss. But that's what I would have expected from Fred, to be honest. But Harry Maguire's a totally different character, and he's digging his heels right in to the turf and making it very difficult. And also, this is having a knock-on effect because we need to make sales to make another signing, and Amrabat is probably going to be the next signing if we make those sales. So we can't get that deal over the line because Harry Maguire won't move. Had we have got the 30 million in the bank on top of say the 15 million for Alanga, then that wouldn't have been enough probably to sign Amrabat from Fiorentina. Now Harry Maguire is now affecting our transfer business as well.
And
And
he's
he's a
probably,
player.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and he's probably happy about that. When I think back, Kyle, to the situation with Ronaldo and Maguire, and the rumours that there was a rift between the two, and that was causing some of the issues in the dressing room. And at the time, I got very annoyed with Ronaldo, and said there were certain things I didn't like about Ronaldo. But some of those things I stick by. But when you think about it, and maybe at the time we did recognise it too, you can understand, Ronaldo coming into that with a massive ego, but everything else to back it up, all the trophies, all the medals, all the accolades to back it up, and him coming in looking somebody like Harry Maguire, who's achieved pretty much zero, and but has the same ego or close to it that Ronaldo had. You can see why there was trouble in that dressing room when you think about it. And if you were to point the finger at anybody, you'd have to say, for right or for wrong, Ronaldo might have been in the right, because at least he can back up his ego. Whereas it seems to me like Maguire has got an ego, and he certainly hasn't backed it up.
No, and Ten Hag obviously made a decision that he didn't want either of them at the club, and I think it was probably the right one.
And probably, yeah, and probably exactly, a probably good decision. Yeah, well, yeah, 100%. And you look back, Ferguson would have made the same decision. Nobody's bigger in the club, and yeah, that's right. You got to have a harmonious dressing room. You're right. Neither of them really probably should be there. But yeah, you can see why there was trouble for sure.
I think it's I think it's farcical really that Harry Maguire thinks he's on the same standing as Cristiano Ronaldo. Um, I can only imagine someday we'll get a few autobiographies about the state of the dressing room in that Solskjaer Ranić season where Ronaldo was fighting with Maguire. I'm sure we're going to hear some cracking
Oh,
stories from that season.
absolutely. Yeah, you can't wait to hear them. Like 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently Greenwood and Ronaldo didn't get along well either. There's another ego. Can
I'm
you?
saying absolutely nothing about that one.
Yeah, that's another unresolved issue. But again, the club, we praised them this summer for how quickly they've made incomings, and they were doing well with the outcomings until Maguire stalled that process. But again, they keep putting back the decision over Greenwood. Are they going to bring him back or not? And now their final consultation is going to be with the Manchester United women's team. Now the hold up is that some of them are at the Women's World Cup in Australia, and are going to wait now till they come back before. But some of the protests, there's some anti-Glazer protests as you would expect, before the game. But there are also some anti-Greenwood protests before the game. Um, and one of the banners were saying that basically the club are spineless for leaving the decision up to the women's team. They've kind of got a point. I mean,
I think they
either
do. I think they do have a point. I can see that. I think the women's team are extremely important to consult, but leaving it as the last thing, as if it's all down to them, I think that's not fair.
yeah, that's passing responsibility to
Yeah,
people who it's not their job to make that decision.
absolutely
It's
not.
ridiculous.
No, I think that's not right, and I think it's not fair either that if the decision to keep him comes along, to then kind of force the women's team to stand behind that decision as if they welcome him with open arms, when I'm sure some of them probably don't. I think that's not quite fair. I think the club should make that decision themselves and make it clear that it's their decision and nobody else's. Yeah, I think that's what they should do.
So they keep putting it back, the date of the decision, and now it could quite possibly be September now. And they said it was going to be, said it was going to be after the FA Cup final. They said it was going to be before the start of the season. Now it could be September. Wouldn't be surprised if they put it back to Christmas, just like the sale of the club that keeps getting put back as well. But
Are
you'll
we
notice that
actually still are we still selling the club? I thought that was
I don't
just
know.
we'd given up on that.
Well, notice now that nobody talks about it anymore because
Yeah,
it's become stale and boring and yeah, it's not even interesting anymore because nobody really believes it's going to happen anytime soon. So yeah, that's just not even a talking point at this stage. So lots and lots more information coming out from. It seems Harry Maguire briefings are just never too far away. So Sky Sports says Dom Macheth says Harry remains settled at United. We've heard that one before. How could he be? Loves the club. No, he doesn't. Believes he will get plenty of opportunities to play the season. No, he won't. Um, David Ornstein says Ten Hag sees Maguire as an important member of the team. Don't believe that. And he is happy for him to fight for his place. I don't think that's totally genuine. I think he's just keeping the player on side a little bit if he has to stick with him. But we all know the actions speak louder than words. We all know that Ten Hag would prefer to move him on and get somebody better in that fits his philosophy. And we know that Maguire could not possibly be happy and settled at United given his lack of playing time and the fact that he's been stripped of the captaincy.
I don't believe it for a second. Don't believe it for a second that he's happy and he's settled. And I think the fact he's digging his heels in like that shows that he's not happy or settled. He's trying to cause disruption. And yeah, like I said, I think Ten Hag has played it really, really smartly. Like you say, Kylie's kind of left the door open for Maguire in a sense that if he has to stay or he does stay, that he hasn't publicly said anything disrespectful about him. But reading between the lines, as I said a minute ago, I see it as that him throwing out the gauntlet. I mean, let's be honest. As much as personalities are really important in football, and I'm sure that if somebody doesn't get on with somebody and it's so bad that they can't stomach each other, no matter how good they are, they'd rather they weren't around. But generally, managers just want the best players. So I have no doubt that Ten Hag is happy enough for Maguire to be there if he's playing well enough. But the fact is, he's clearly saying he hasn't played well enough, and that's why he knows he's not for me unless something dramatic changes. And if he has to stay, he'll be saying, "Look, I'll give you chances as long as you're good enough. I have nothing against you, so come on ahead and just show it to me." But I think we all know that he's probably not going to show it. So yeah, yeah, I can't see how he's happy, and I don't think that Ten Hag sees him as being a big part of his plans. But yeah, who knows?
Well, there's 2 weeks left of the window. A lot can happen in that time, so don't be surprised if Harry Maguire ends up leaving the club before the deadline. Um, Especially in that final that final week and that final day, lots of clubs get desperate, lots of frantic activity. So I don't think United are finished in terms of incomings and outgoings. On the 15th of August, I think there's lots more legs in our transfer
No,
window.
absolutely,
Um,
Kyle. Jim White's banking on it. He's got his yellow tie at the ready, and that's what he absolutely lives for, is those frantic last minute deals. So yeah,
well,
no, you're 100% right.
Um, he now does a morning breakfast show on Talksport with Simon Jordan. So I think he left Sky a few years ago. So he doesn't do it anymore. Maybe he does it for Talksport. I don't know. He probably will. I think he does it from memory. I think they do they do have him on Talksport throughout the day on Deadline Day. And but he doesn't do the 6 o'clock evening show on Sky anymore.
Shows how
Um,
much attention I pay.
yeah. Um, Yeah, I'd probably be a regular enough listener to him and Simon Jordan. Simon Jordan, whether you like him or love him, has some he's not afraid to say what he thinks. I just put it that way. And he articulates himself very well. So he's always, whether he's talking about boxing, tennis, or football, he's always very interesting to listen to. He's of course um Crystal Palace fans who we were friends with from Eagle Eyed Football Channel. They'll be very familiar with Simon Jordan as he was their owner for
So
10 years.
I believe.
Um, He was also the owner of Phones for You. Do you remember that company?
Do you remember Phones for
Yeah,
You? I didn't realize
yeah,
you owned that company. I do remember Phones for You, I do indeed. Yeah,
I think he was. Yeah, yeah. Him and Eddie Hearn have had a few debates on Talksport recently. And the second one was known as round two because it'd been that kind of, it's quite spiky, let's say, between the two of them, two big personalities clashing there. So it's well worth a watch if anyone wants to check that out. Um,
good
I just
value.
seen I just seen somebody on Twitter um put up a video of Jose Sa, the Wolves goalkeeper, last night clattering into Anthony, and nothing was given because the ball was away. It's funny how that's not been debated for 3 hours in Talksport or Sky Sports News. Yeah, I'm just watching the video here. Um, Anthony is in a running down the right hand side of the penalty area. The goalkeeper goes rushing out and clatters into him. I mean, how's that different from what Onana did?
Yeah,
You know,
it's like you
uh,
say, Kai. When it's Manchester United, it's huge and it's terrible, and how dare they? And it's a fix, and they're paying the referees, and referees love them, and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, other clubs get the rub of the green all the time, and it doesn't garner half the attention. But I guess that's what comes with Manchester United, isn't it? They're always there for the clicks, always there for the likes. So yeah, it's going to happen.
yeah, it's like I say, that type of challenge happens in every game. Yes, this has been blown out of all proportion because it was in like the 97th minute at Old Trafford for the opposition, and the goalkeeper is making his debut, who's going to be scrutinised to, um, forensically for the whole season because he's replacing a keeper that's been there for 12 years. Um, yeah, so it's ridiculous,
No, it
I know.
is. Well, like I said earlier, Carrie, the one thing I would like to hear, and it's without patting ourselves in the back too much, but you and I both said it, and we've seen a lot of other fans say it, and friends of mine that are United fans on social media and stuff have said it. We're able to admit when we think we've got a bad decisions went our way. I'd like to hear that more from fans of other clubs as well this season. If they get penalties that they shouldn't have got, or they, penalties that they went their way where the penalty wasn't given and it should have been. I'd like to hear them come out and just be as honest as we have been, and other United fans I've seen have been, and say, look, we got lucky there. We really shouldn't have got that. So yeah, I think that's only fair. And kind of good sportsman behavior. But yeah, you're right. We'll always be forensically scrutinised, and yeah, everything Manchester United does, always seems to carry that extra bit of weight for whatever reason.
Yeah, and you can understand that from the media's point of view. They want to talk about, they're going to um, have debates and write stories about a club that people want to talk about. I think it was Martin Samuels used to be on Sunday Supplement, maybe still is, and he writes a column for the Daily Mail. And even he said that nobody wants to read about West Brom, and that's why everybody wants to read about Manchester United, no matter what team you support. That's why the bulk of the football news is about one club. And even he admitted that as a journalist, that that's what goes on in the industry.
Yeah, it does, and that's the thing. United. If you're a United fan, you love them. You want to read about them. You want to swallow everything you can find. If you're not a United fan, you probably don't like them at all, and you want to read about them, and you want to swallow everything you can find because you feed your whatever it is. So yeah, the United just garner attention, whether it's good or bad. They do just command attention, and yeah, the journalists play up
And
to that.
I mean, absolutely no disrespect to West Brom fans. Obviously, you care about your club,
Oh
but
no, no, 100%
um,
not. Not one bit.
uh, but I think even they'll admit that Manchester United are the most talked about team in England, and that's why the media focus on them so much. But that was the example that Martin Sam was used. Unfortunately, West Brom were used as the example, even though you could have selected 91 teams. They were the team that were used in the argument. But
You say absolutely no disrespect at all to West Brom or their fans. No, not at all. Obviously a great club.
yeah, with their celebrity fan base of Frank Skinner and Adrian Childs,
It's all right. Not bad.
not, not many can boast that. Um, yeah, United, not off to a great start. Well, it's weird. We did get 3 points, but the performance was that bad. It's hard to be happy about it. So if Spurs had a 2 each draw with Brentford, now Spurs look really good going forward. Not so good at their defending. So and looking at how disjointed we are, this game could be goals galore against Tottenham on Saturday. Um, so sometimes there's a prediction of goals galore, and it never works out that way. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at at least 5 or 6 goals in this game. Um, Particularly if Ten Hag adopts the same system, which he might not. But I imagine this is going to. People probably thought that because Harry Kane has gone to Bayern Munich, that this would be an easier game. I don't think so. I mean, we know ourselves that Ange Postecoglou is a very, very talented coach, and he plays on their front foot. And Spurs and like going to Brentford and getting a point is no mean feat, as we know as Manchester
I
United
was gonna
fans.
say if we as the first games of the season go, it can be a tough one as we learned the hard way last year. So yeah, absolutely.
So I'm expecting a really, really tough encounter at the weekend. Now, you still have Son Heung-min. They now have James Madison. They have Richarlison playing up front. Um, yeah, and they've strengthened their back line and changed their goalkeeper. So, they're- yeah. So this is no way am I. No, probably nobody was thinking this was going to be in an easy game anyway off the back of last night. But definitely looking at the two performances and the two teams, I think we're in for a tough game, and things will have to improve massively if we're going to get anything from this game. We're looking at United last night. I'd almost be happy with a point away to Tottenham, to be honest with you. If we're going to win the game, we're going to have to look like a completely different team, aren't we?
Completely, yeah, yeah, no, 100%, Kyle. Yeah, no, look, I think I maybe got the team wrong. Actually, I think was it Brighton we played the first game of the season last year? We
Yeah,
got them.
it
I
was
got
Brighton and then Brentford. Yeah, we lost both games.
I knew it was around then, but yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. We had a really bad start to last season, and then I believe that we not lose a game in the league after that during last season? Is that correct?
Um, I mean, after the two defeats at the
Yeah,
beginning of the
or
season.
maybe just at home. I heard a stat
Um,
yesterday that yeah, but I mean, either way, I think. we improved from then, and obviously
I think we
the
went on a
season.
bit of a winning run. I think we beat Liverpool at Old Trafford in the third game. Then we beat Leicester away, and then beat Arsenal at home. I can't remember after that, but yeah, we recovered pretty well considering the start of the season.
Yeah, exactly. So even with a couple of poor performances at the start of the season, like you say, we recovered well, and it was a poor performance last night. But I always say, you always talk about the mark of a champion. Not saying that we're going to win the league, but playing poorly and still getting the points. And so yeah, to the letter of the law, it was as good a performance as you could ask for because we got the result, but the performance itself was poor. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a tough game against Spurs. There's no two ways about that. I think Ten Hag, as you alluded to earlier, Kyle, he's gonna have some thinking to do, particularly around the midfield and how we're going to set up. But yeah, I mean, played poorly, got 3 points. That's kind of in a way all you can ask for your first game of the season. With a bit of a new look team. So yeah, hopefully we can just build on it and yeah, try and kick on. But like you said, it's not going to be an easy game. But it'll hopefully be an entertaining game. But yeah, definitely not going to be easy.
Yeah, and I left out accidentally Lindelof's score from the game. He obviously played 45 plus 7. Yeah, he was getting dragged out of position a lot again. He follows his man into the other half of the field, and then he ends up being skinned by a tricky winger, and then all of a sudden he's well out of position. And he has a habit of doing that, and he was doing that a few times last night. So probably only a 5 for Lindelof, really. But yeah, would rather have him in the team than Harry Maguire. He's just a walking error machine, really, at this point. So yeah, no disrespect to Harry, he needs to move on. Even for his own sanity, he needs to move on. I mean, who would want to stay when he's been booed by his own fans on a constant basis? And you know, and the manager has no belief in him at all, no matter what he says in public.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he needs to move. I think he needs to move on, and that's it. Taking everything else out of it. The guy's a professional footballer. He's earned his position at Manchester United. He's had a fairly good career, and he has good performances for England and stuff like that. So for his own pride, you think, it's not personal. It hasn't quite worked out that maybe the way he wanted at Man United. Things haven't went his way. There's been a lot of upheaval, a lot of change. And it seems like the right time for the club and for him to move on. And so I just think it seems like the right thing to do. Just his career will improve if he can play to the performances that he feels that he has in him. Well, then why not do that somewhere where they'll be appreciated? Go to West Ham. Put in those performances and be appreciated by the West Ham fans, by their manager and club, and then it'll keep his England career on the trajectory that he wants it to go. So it just seems like he's making life hard for himself. Like to say, by staying at United, no, I feel like he just needs to move on.
yeah, I just want to come back to quickly Talk Sport, who've obviously been full of United chat all day. Now Mason Mount's brother is very, very unhappy with the coverage that Mason has been getting on Talksport. Talksport put out a tweet saying Mason Mount's Premier League debut: 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 chances created, 0 crosses, 0 tackles won, and 0 aerial duels won. So, is it really necessary for Talksport to go after him like that? Um, Now, Mason Mount's brother said, "I've tried to let this go all day, but honestly, shame on you, Talksport. These players know these people get enough abuse without you adding fuel to the fire." A reminder that he's had a very skillful 18-year career in football and is good, kind human being, and more than I can say for some of your reporters. So very, very robust defence there of his brother from Mason Mount. But we know that the media or vultures and Talksport in particular. I was listening to a bit of the, I don't know why I seemed to like I'm a glutton for punishment. I was listening to Talksport's evening
You're
show
definitely
there,
that for sure, Kyle.
and a Liverpool fan called in. No, what a surprise! And he wanted to talk about Manchester United against Wolves. And what he was annoyed about, first of all, he said that Onana committed GBH on the Wolves striker. And what annoyed him the most was that Bruno Fernandes did not receive a yellow card in the first half for slopping the turf in frustration, because he said all weekend players have been getting booked for back chat and time wasting, yet somehow Bruno Fernandes got away with it. Um, I know Bruno is hated by opposition fans and probably
Oh,
Liverpool
absolutely.
fans.
He definitely
I know,
is. Yeah, Liverpool fans
and I
don't
know
like him in particular.
probably Liverpool fans in particular because they're their biggest rivals. But to actually phone up a talk show, not to talk about his own team who didn't win this weekend, but to talk about the fact that the captain of Manchester United did not receive a yellow card in the first half. That is how obsessed these people are with Manchester United.
I think it's called rent free.
Yeah, I think these people need to get a hobby outside of football because they're thinking about us too much. Um, yeah, when they're not discussing their own teams, they just want to discuss Manchester United, and I understand we're rivals and all that, but I do not phone up Sky Sports or Talk Sport or Five Live to protest that a Liverpool midfielder did not get a yellow card in the first half against Chelsea. I mean, that's absurd.
I think maybe you should, in fairness, Kyle. I think we need all the support they can get. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, yeah, I just want to come back actually to your thing about your point about Mason Mount. I think that's the Manchester United effect all over again. I mean, I have absolutely no idea how Mason Mount performed on his debut for Chelsea, or for England. And even if he had a performance to get, I am sure that he wouldn't have got that much attention and that much slating. But Manchester United, as we say, clicks and likes and people reading and listening and interest, and you just know that's just they just know that's going to get people's back up, or people are going to love it whatever way they see Man United. And I think that's just what it is. I feel sorry for his brother. I feel sorry for him because clearly for him that it's his brother. It's very personal, and he sees that as a personal attack. But in not to defend talk sport at all, but to put it into perspective, I don't think it's got anything to do with Mason Mount. I think it's just got all to do with the fact that it's Manchester United, and that's unfortunately what comes with being a Manchester United player. The media are just always gonna scrutinise.
Yeah, Talksport are very much provocateurs, and Gabriel Bonahor has been well trained in that area.
Apparently, he
So
delivers the training. Actually,
yeah, he's now probably become the head of um, the provocative department, and how to get clicks and likes and retweets and views on social media. He only been trained up a few years ago, but now he's the expert. Because he
they,
can actually,
he's become the
when
master.
every show he does, I can't even listen to him anymore because when there's been a United game the night before, you know what he's going to say, what he's going to do. Um, Obviously he had lots to go on last night with the Onana incident, but even if we won by a mile, he would pick something out that we got away with, or some refereeing decision, or or something to do with how we've treated a certain player, or maybe the Harry Maguire fiasco. He knows what buttons to press and knows how to get a reaction, and he's definitely the expert of that. I think it was even Troy Deeney said on a podcast that Talksport, when he was working there, they wanted him. There was very much a direction from the producers to, say certain things, to get attention, and he was not willing to go along with it. So he didn't stay long at Talksport. But clearly, Gabby is very much willing to comply with their material. So that's why he's been a long term, employee, and fits in well with the station.
Well, that's it. Well, at the
Um,
end of the day, I have to remember it is the entertainment business after all. That's what it's all about. And yeah, entertainment can come in many
and
forms.
And unfortunately, we're giving them exactly what they want by talking about them.
Exactly. And Kyle, you promoted them all over this podcast in the last 15
Um,
minutes.
yeah, I, I mean, I, given I've given them so much promotion, I think they should promote the Glory Glory My podcast on the Talk Sport Drive Time show.
I'll second that, Kyle. I'll absolutely second that. 100%. 100%.
um, okay, everybody, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks to Daniel Hutchison and Brush for their comments. I think we did talk about your suggestions. So if everybody could please Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and get more of your comments in down below. And I shall see you again then, Chris.
Kyle, talk to you soon. Pleasure as always, mate.